CEO's shocking bet to marry the janitor reveals an amazing secret that left him speechless. Tyler Reynolds slammed the whiskey glass on the bar, the laughter of his friends a distant echo as they cheered his reckless challenge. "I can marry the janitor. Bet." It was a wild joke, born from the blurred lines of a long night fueled by stress and ambition that had, for months now, clawed at him from inside. He had spent years building his tech startup in Silicon Valley, a pursuit now crumbling under the relentless weight of corporate politics and investors' fears. What was he thinking? The stakes felt dangerously high, and yet, a small part of him craved the distraction. His phone buzzed with a notification, another investor breathing down his neck. He turned to his friends, grinning, unaware of the storm brewing. As the chatter faded, Tyler's mind spiraled. He had chosen a path paved with cutthroat ambition, leaving little room for anything resembling authentic connection. The people around him waited like vultures to pick apart his faltering empire. Would this ridiculous bet deflect the pressure, or would it only compound the impending disaster? The laughter felt hollow, just like the glass he clutched tightly in his hand. He swallowed hard, his stomach twisting. In the stark contrast of polished offices and echoing hallways, Emma collected her cleaning cart at the end of yet another long day, her heart heavy with exhaustion. Every swipe of the broom brought thoughts of her teenage son and dreams tucked away like old toys. She wanted to be a writer, to escape the cycle of working 2 jobs just to put food on the table. The cloistered world of Tyler Reynolds felt galaxies away, filled with men in suits observing the little people beneath their glass ceilings. As news of Tyler's bet meandered through the office, whispers danced around the usually mundane corridors. Half in disbelief, half in speculation, the idea morphed into a bizarre sensation. If this was a publicity stunt, how would it play out? For Tyler, who scarcely cared about the perception of the masses, it was about distracting himself from the tightening noose of uncertainty. What would marrying a woman like Emma even mean to him? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weeks passed and Tyler found himself drawn to Emma, who was more than just the janitor. She held a story, one that he desperately wanted to know. Her laughter raided his thoughts, and they shared dinners during nightly shifts, relishing the ordinary moments that seemed extraordinary together. Each encounter peeled away his ego, sparking unease within him. Suddenly, loyalty to those investing in his dreams loomed ever heavier. What if Emma held a lineage he never knew? The daughter of a legendary figure who had shaped the very company he built his life upon. Now, every laugh smacked of bitter irony. He leaned against his office window, the San Francisco skyline twinkling but hollow. The bets had begun to feel less like a joke and more like a choice. Yet, it was that exact choice, exposing himself to a future he couldn't comprehend, that terrified him. Would marrying Emma save him or doom him? A revelation hung in the air, waiting to transform the meaningless bet into a collision course of ambition and unforeseen love. The weight pressed down on him the moment when commitment morphed from a gamble to a potential reckoning lay just ahead, teetering over the edge of decisions he feared to make. Would he have the courage to embrace the truth? Tyler paced the sleek marble floor of his office, the city sprawled before him, yet it felt smaller than ever. Thoughts of Emma intermingled with images of board meetings and investor pressure. This bet, which began as a fleeting notion, took on a form he could no longer dismiss. He wasn't just flirting with chaos, he was actively inviting it. In the midst of these thoughts, he recalled Emma's eyes, brimming with a kind of quiet strength that he found disarming. Their shared dinners had morphed from simple meals into an exploration of unspoken dreams and fears. Each conversation shed layers of his well-constructed bravado, exposing vulnerabilities he'd long ignored. What he had initially brushed off as a diversion was beginning to unearth something deeper within him, a longing for authenticity beyond the sterile walls of corporate ambition. Yet, a dark cloud loomed over his burgeoning feelings. Was he truly prepared to disrupt his life, his career, with a relationship as unpredictable as one born from a bet? Beyond the personal turmoil was the responsibility he wielded over his company and investors, all of whom relied on his decisions. He felt their eyes on him, scrutinizing every move, waiting for failures that would collapse not just his career but potentially their futures as well. Would pursuing this connection with Emma prove to be a reckless gamble? That evening, he found himself unable to sleep. The city pulsed beneath him, the hum of life a stark contrast to his growing restlessness. He opened his laptop, the screen illuminating his face in the darkness. He began tapping out ideas for a new product, something tangible that could re-establish his authority. Still, every thought spiraled back to Emma, who she was, what she aspired to be. As he sat there, an epiphany struck him hard. He had always been the driven entrepreneur, focused on profits and shareholder satisfaction, often sidelining the human element. But connecting with Emma revealed that true success required more than capital. It necessitated human connection, understanding, empathy, vulnerability. She'd already transformed his perspective, inspiring a torrent of ideas that would integrate social impact with technology. What if he could incorporate her story and struggles into this new endeavor? The thought exhilarated him, weaving a thread of passion into his professional fabric, but it also revealed a poignant dilemma. He imagined the boardroom protests, the objections from fellow executives who cared only about the bottom line. The risk of failure crept back, making him question everything. Uncertainty wrapped itself around him like a thick fog, leaving him wondering if he was ready to give up everything for a chance at something meaningful. Later that week, Tyler surprised Emma with an invitation to lunch. As they settled in a cozy cafe, he felt the familiar tension knotting in his stomach. Should he reveal his shifting aspirations? Would showing his ambition rooted in personal connection be worth the risk of her judging him? Emma, he began, hesitating as he chose his words. I've been thinking about integrating a community-focused dimension into my company's next move. What do you think about the impact technology can have on everyday lives? Shadows flickered across her face as she considered his question. The ensuing silence spoke volumes. What was she contemplating? Would she see him merely as a CEO playing with ideals, or could she understand that his ambition was shifting away from self-serving endeavors towards something more profound? Her response was delayed, almost cautious, making Tyler acutely aware of the heightened stakes in this unexpected partnership. As he awaited her words, he couldn't shake the feeling that their conversation might lead to a defining moment in both their lives. The moment lingered, heavy with the gravity of his question, and just as he felt the need to push for an answer, she finally met his gaze, her expression unreadable, leaving both of them on the precipice of revelation. Tyler, she started, leaning closer, what you might not know about me could change everything. Tyler felt the weight of Emma's gaze as she paused, the air thick with anticipation. 1,000 possibilities raced through his mind. What could she possibly reveal that would alter everything? He wrestled with a sense of dread. He had already taken the first step into this uncertain territory. Would the truth yield connection or fracture the fragile bond they had built? Go on, he urged, his voice low as if any louder tone could shatter the moment. Emma took a deep breath, visibly steeling herself. I've spent years working in social enterprises, Tyler, she confessed, her eyes glinting with a mixture of resolve and vulnerability. I didn't just appear out of nowhere in that cafe. I've seen what technology can do or not do for people who don't fit the corporate mold. My passion is helping those who are often overlooked. Her words struck him, redefining his perception of her. She wasn't merely an inspiration for a new product, she was a force in her own right, carrying the weight of lived experiences that gave her insight into the very heart of his aspirations. His professional worlds, previously dominated by mechanical calculations and bottom lines, now collided with her reality of empathy and purpose. I didn't know that, Tyler said, the confession slipping from him with a mix of excitement and shame. I've been so wrapped up in my vision that I lost track of what real impact means. But this could change everything for us, he added, suddenly conscious of how their destinies might interweave. How? She asked gently but firmly. If you're just thinking of this as an initiative to impress others, it will fail. Real change comes from genuine purpose and commitment. He opened his mouth to defend his vision, but her words resonated within him, unraveling another layer of doubt. Emma, I want to create something that makes a difference. Let us combine your insight with my resources to change lives. As the sentiment hung in the air, he realized he was not just courting a partnership for business, he was extending a hand towards something deeper toward her. Yet another wave of fear washed over him. What would the board say? Would they dismiss his newfound ambition as wishful thinking? Tyler, she hesitated, biting her lip. This isn't just about business for me. I've invested so much of myself into making change happen. If you're just experimenting with what it feels like to care. No, he interrupted, a surge of insistence coursing through him. This was not a passing fascination. He had genuinely opened himself to the depths of his own desire for transformation, both for himself and for those who needed his support. I'm serious about this direction. I need you in this. I need your passion and your insight. The moment hung suspended as Emma's expression softened. Yet, a flicker of uncertainty remained in her eyes. Could he truly meld his world of fiscal measurement with her idealism? I want to believe you, she replied slowly. But change isn't easy. It requires sacrifice. The reality of her words settled in, amplifying the tension within him. Could he sacrifice the pristine, profit-driven path he had followed? Or was engaging with Emma's vision merely the first step in a series of sacrifices he was willing to make for authenticity and connection? Let us flesh out a plan, he said forcefully, feeling a surge of determination. Show me your world, and I'll show you mine. Let us see what we can build together. Emma nodded slowly, a hint of hope creeping into her demeanor. All right. But I need you to promise that you won't lose sight of this journey, no matter how hard it becomes. I promise, he replied, but a storm of questions brewed within him. Was he truly ready to embrace the chaos that their collaboration could unleash? As they exchanged ideas, Tyler felt the familiar pulse of ambition returning, a sensation both exhilarating and terrifying. Directly before him lay a precipice of promise, one that shimmered with the potential for growth but also with shadows of doubt, fear, and the looming pressures of his enterprise. Across the table, Emma's connection felt electrifying, each heartbeat bringing them closer to a shared purpose. But amidst the excitement, he sensed the tremors of conflict, internal and external. The challenge was no longer just about forging a new corporate path, it was about understanding himself, redefining his identity, and facing what lay ahead if they decided to dive into the unknown together. Tension brimming, he thought fleetingly of the boardroom meetings, the driven investors, and the upcoming decisions that could alter everything. Suddenly, a knock at the cafe door jolted him. The world beyond, impatient and relentless, began to seep back into the moment. Uncertainty unfolded around him like a dark cloak, whispering doubt and questions about where this path would lead. Tyler. Emma's voice cut through his overwhelming thoughts. Are you ready for what this could mean? He held her gaze, the gravity of her question hanging there, echoing through the fabric of his ambitions. Standing at the threshold of a choice that would redefine not just his career but who he was becoming, Tyler took a deep breath, feeling the exhilarating weight of possibility and fear entwined. More than ever, he finally replied, yet even as he spoke, a sense of foreboding tightened in his chest, making him wonder if he had truly grasped the depths of what they were about to embark upon. As he contemplated the implications that lay ahead, he braced himself, knowing that whatever secrets or challenges awaited them, they would soon collide fatefully. What had he and Emma truly awakened in each other? Would they have the strength to navigate the storms brewing on the horizon together? The early morning sunlight streamed through the cafe window, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air. Tyler felt an unfamiliar energy coursing through him, integration with Emma's mission creating a spark he couldn't fully understand yet. For the first time, the shadows on the wall of his corporate existence began to shift. The decisions he would make in the coming days would dictate whether he remained a cog in the traditional machine of success or ventured into uncharted territory. They spent hours brainstorming, tossing ideas back and forth as if caught in a new rhythm. Emma's voice was vivid with passion, lighting a fire in Tyler he hadn't realized was dimming. Projects were sketched on napkins, potential partnerships flared in their discussions, and a palpable excitement filled the space between them. Yet, even as his ambitions blossomed, an unsettling thought gnawed at the edges of Tyler's mind. Collaborating with Emma meant shedding parts of himself, the carefully curated image he had built over years, the respect he commanded in the boardroom, the value placed on stakeholder satisfaction alone. What if this endeavor cut too deeply into his identity? What if he faltered under the judgment of his peers? The following day, Tyler called a meeting with his management team, a mixture of steel and apprehension swirling in his gut. Every person around that boardroom table symbolized the safety of convention, and the radical reimagining he now sought to pursue stood as an audacious risk. He presented the polished idea, a technology initiative focused on societal impact, integrating Emma's insights. As he spoke, the excitement in his voice was bright, even infectious. Yet, trepidation marred the anticipation around the table. He watched their reactions closely, some brows furrowed in skepticism, while others wore interested smiles, trying to mask doubt. "Tyler, this sounds ambitious, but how do we explain this vision to our investors?" Sam, the CFO, posed the question, his voice steadier than his expression. Tyler swallowed hard, feeling the set of traditional financial dynamics that had always governed his world tighten around him. "We can shift metrics. I want to pursue success through authentic engagement. Changing lives should be our new bottom line." "This isn't a charity," another executive chimed in. "You're risking our reputation with this change narrative. Our focus has always been on growth." A surge of determination coursed through him, but fear tangled it with uncertainty. Could he successfully persuade them? What good are numbers if they represent hollow victories? The words rushed from his mouth, causing a ripple of surprise. Investors care about integrity and value, not just revenue figures. The debate swung open, tension building with every rebuttal. Tyler felt himself bifurcated. A part of him sought to mold the corporate machine into a vehicle for meaningful change while the other half wrestled with the hard truths of risk and potential failure. Internal conflict coursed through him, making him question his identity in that brief but palpable silence. Yet amidst the dissonance, a glimmer of resolve emerged. He had witnessed the transformative spark Emma embodied, and it had ignited a need within himself that burgeoned beyond the walls of the conference room. "Let us conduct a pilot project," Tyler proposed suddenly, his conviction strengthening. "We can take a percentage of our budget, engage Emma as a consultant, and prove this model is viable." The room fell silent. The tension hung heavy, interrupted only by the fluttering of papers. "Pilot projects do carry risk," Sam said, finally breaking the silence but intrigued nonetheless. "I understand that," Tyler said, his heart pounding against his ribs, fueled by a mixture of fear and urgency. "But it's a measured risk, one we should take if we truly want to evolve. If we don't lead now, what's the point of our success?" The murmurs of contemplation spread amongst his colleagues. For the first time, he saw the faintest flickers of curiosity igniting in their skeptical expressions, a sign it might be possible to blend the financial backbone of their company with a heart driven by social engagement. As he returned to the cafe later that day, he couldn't shake the anxiety that hung in the air. Had he planted enough seeds in that meeting to shift their perspective? Would they support him when the pushback came? The paradox of leading change once again weighed heavy on his shoulders. Emma was already waiting for him, her enthusiasm undimmed. "How did it go?" "I laid out the plan," he said, despite a flutter of uncertainty. "But it's clear it will take time to convince them." "Real change is often met with skepticism," Emma replied, her eyes alive with understanding. You're paving an entirely new path, Tyler. Can I truly walk it without sacrificing who I've been? He countered, the threads of his identity fraying with each deliberate step forward. The question hung between them like a loaded weapon, capable of unraveling everything he had known. I think you can, she said firmly, her belief radiating clarity. But you need to decide if that's a path you're willing to tread. As his thoughts traversed the uncertain terrain, reality crashed over him. The convergence of pure ambition and meaningful impact echoed in his mind. Each step would forge his new narrative. And if he faltered, what would that mean for him and their shared vision? Gathering his breath and resolve, Tyler looked into Emma's eyes, contemplating the enormity of what lay ahead. Would he embrace the volatility of this new journey, willing to challenge both himself and his corporation in the process? Let us keep planning for the pilot, he declared, infused with fresh determination, and regardless of what lies ahead, I will not falter. With a palpable energy building between them, Emma nodded, a smile creeping onto her lips. Just as Tyler felt invigorated by the potential they could harness together, something deep within him whispered of an approaching reckoning, the corporate storm threatening to challenge everything he was beginning to believe. The day turned, and as the shadows grew longer, Tyler couldn't shake that sense of inevitability. It was time for a confrontation not just with the board, but with his own values, ambitions, and the very essence of the man he aimed to become. He steeled himself for the shift that awaited him. And all he could wonder was, as the tides began to rise, would he be swept away, or could he emerge stronger than ever? The next morning, Tyler arrived at the office earlier than usual, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as he navigated the dim corridors. The weight of yesterday's meeting pressed against him, that piercing anxiety morphing into a simmering resolve. He felt as if he were standing at the precipice of a cliff, ready to leap into unknown waters. He stepped into his office, the glass walls reflecting not just his outline but the myriad possibilities of the pilot project. He sat down at his desk, opening a blank document that awaited his thoughts. The cursor blinked at him, an unwelcome reminder of uncertainty. He needed strategy, direction, and a plan to align the conservative mindset of his board with the innovative vision he had begun to sketch out in collaboration with Emma. As he formed his ideas, he understood he needed more than just enthusiasm. He required a foundation of strategy and metrics that could appeal to the financial sensibilities of his colleagues. The passionate vision he had presented would need to be wrapped in the language of numbers and projections, something that would resonate with the conservative voices that clawed at the edges of his convictions. Hours slipped by as he worked through the details, each proposal indelibly marked by the reality of maintaining the balance between risk and potential reward. He began to draft scenarios for potential outcomes and the impact of community engagement on market share. Sustainable growth became his mantra as he framed the successes of their competitors who had ventured into social impact initiatives without sacrificing profitability. After crafting a compelling outline, Tyler felt a fleeting sense of accomplishment until a more insidious thought surfaced. What if his assumptions were overreaching? How much was he willing to stake on this new direction? The thought sent jolts of unease through him. His corporate identity had been a protective shield, revered and respected, but was he prepared to gamble that respect? A knock at the door interrupted his spiral. It was Sam, his CFO. "Got a minute?" Sam asked, stepping inside, the familiar furrow between his brows deepening. "Sure," Tyler replied, offering a seat. "I've been working through our proposal for the pilot project." Sam leaned forward, his tone shifting from cordial to serious. "I know you're passionate about this, but I'm concerned about our image. Stakeholders want to view a tech initiative as a priority if we're not generating revenue. We need to keep our core business healthy. But we can generate revenue through impact," Tyler countered, a fire igniting within him. "We can reframe our business model to attract a new demographic, one that values corporate responsibility." "Do you really believe they'll see it that way?" Sam challenged. "All I see is a potential distraction that could drag us down when we need stability most." Tyler clenched his jaw, the internal battle against conformity and innovation tightening around him. Deep within, a strand of self-doubt unraveled. Was he in over his head? He wrestled with his instincts, fighting the urge to simply reassure Sam and revert back to safety. "I'll prove it, Sam. I'm confident," he said, the words spilling out with an intensity that surprised him. "I'll give you data that supports this approach. Our success can't be measured merely in revenue, it must reflect our integrity and impact." Sam regarded him with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Then show us. But make sure you're presenting a solid case. We don't have the luxury of failure." With the weight of Sam's disbelief lingering in the room, Tyler felt a surge of electricity pulsating through him. A shift had taken place in his core, not just a resolution to prove himself but a crystallization of a belief in the transformative potential of their endeavor. "Thank you for your honesty, Sam," he said, standing taller. "I'll get to work." As Sam left, Tyler prepared himself to face the necessary challenges. Each rejection he encountered would build his determination. He would approach his colleagues with not just a project, but a compelling vision pointedly tied to corporate credibility. A sense of urgency washed over him as he realized he needed to schedule a follow-up meeting with the board, a dedicated time to present his refined proposal, fortified with data and actionable insights. But before that could happen, he needed Emma's perspective, her insights carved from experience. "We need to talk," he texted her, eager to continue their conversations that had sparked his inner flame. The hesitation he had felt earlier began to dissolve, ushered out by a rising tide of anticipation. As he prepared for the next steps, he glanced out of the window, catching a glimpse of the bustling city below, a landscape of ambition, opportunity, and challenges, each twist and turn reflecting his own journey ahead. With a final deep breath, he mentally steeled himself for the storm of questions that would soon come, this time, not only from his peers but from within. The game was changing, and with each bold step forward, Tyler could feel the tension of transformation coiling tighter around him. He was committed to the path ahead, but there was one lingering question that gnawed at him: what was he willing to sacrifice to see his vision realized? The moment had arrived to confront not just the board but the deeper layers of resistance that simmered within himself. With the next meeting looming, would he emerge not just as an advocate for change but as a transformed leader, unbound by the chains of convention? Tyler leaned forward, staring at the glowing screen with a determination that electrified the air around him. Emma's insights could be the catalyst he needed to solidify his arguments. He crafted a detailed message highlighting the importance of marrying their innovative vision with proven financial models. When Emma arrived, her presence brought an air of calmness amidst Tyler's brewing storm of anxiety. "I got your message. You sounded urgent," she said, settling into the chair opposite him. The direct intensity of her gaze pushed him to confront the core of what he was trying to accomplish. "We need to reshape our proposal. I want to make it undeniable," Tyler stated, laying out statistics and preliminary research he had gathered. Emma listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes, her expression a mix of skepticism and intrigue. "Data is essential," she acknowledged, "but numbers mean nothing if you can't translate them into the human impact. You need to pull at their heartstrings, Tyler." Her words struck a chord within him, igniting something they had only briefly touched upon in their previous discussions. The urgency was not just about the data, it was about the vision, a vision that connected the human spirit to corporate success. "I've been so focused on strategy," Tyler confessed, "that I've sidelined the emotional narrative. It's just that numbers speak to the board." "Perhaps," Emma countered, a smile creeping across her face. "But your passion can't translate into fear. Instead, channel that into a story they can understand. Community impact stories resonate. You need to show what the bottom line looks like when social responsibility merges with our bottom line." Tyler felt a shift, the instinct for safety giving way to a rush of inspiration. What if he told a story that illustrated not only the economic advantages but the moral responsibility they bore? He could weave together the potential growth with the need for connection, forging a narrative that made the board feel like stakeholders in this new vision. As they brainstormed, Tyler delved deeper into the industry landscape, identifying companies that had succeeded through similar transitions. "Look at the metrics of those who embraced impact," he said, gaining momentum. They experienced growth in both engendered goodwill and genuine revenue. The words began to form a persuasive tapestry in his mind. Yet, self-doubt lingered, whispering that focusing on emotion might provoke cynicism from the board. Would they consider his approach naive? Tyler's internal turmoil grew, an echo of Sam's caution ringing loudly. The tension clenched his stomach. I can't ignore the conservative mindset. What if they don't see it my way? He mused aloud, his determination wavering. That's why it's vital to present a solid case. Back your emotional appeal with data. Strive for a balance, Emma encouraged. Each story needs statistical evidence to underscore your narrative. Then, it becomes unassailable. A revelation settled within him. He needed to present not just a financial forecast but a potent narrative that resonated with their values, the individual stories of the people who would benefit from the project. The challenge lay ahead. Creating compelling illustrations would require further exploration of their potential audience. Tyler felt awakened, a quiet confidence rising as he imagined standing before the board, transforming from a mere salesperson of ideas into an executive wielding a vision. His heart raced with a newfound purpose, one that demanded both rigor and creativity. As the meeting with the board loomed nearer, he could not afford to falter. With Outlook reminders pinging for the scheduled date, he knew time was of the essence. What changes would confront him? How would he navigate the potential pushback, armed with emotional narratives and the numbers to back them? In this newfound intensity, one question burned deeper than the rest: could he truly reshape not just their corporate destiny but his own identity in the process? Each pulse of doubt coupled with determination urged him forward, and a single emotional truth began to surface: what power of personal sacrifice would reveal the leader he needed to become? The answers awaited in the boardroom, as did the real test of his evolution. Beside the mountain of spreadsheets and projections, the real question loomed larger still: how far was he willing to go for his vision? Time became an omnipresent specter as Tyler dove deeper into his preparations. Each day slipping through his fingers intensified the urgency thickening the air around him. He needed to sculpt his narrative with precision, blending data with heartwarming stories of real people touched by their initiative. As he pored over case studies and interview transcripts, the faces behind the statistics began to materialize. There was Marta, a single mother whose life had pivoted positively after the community funding infused into her local bakery. Her story cut through his calculations, reminding him why numbers had to trace back to actual lives. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Emma, suggesting they review the presentation together. When he met her later that evening, her presence felt more like a buoy than a lighthouse, lifting his spirits amidst the swirling tempest of his insecurities. I identified 10 distinct narratives we can build on, he began, excitement lighting up his voice. Each one tied back to concrete outcomes. If we can show how this funding transformed lives, they have to listen, right? Exactly, Emma replied, leaning in, her eyes sparkling with belief. But don't forget that's only half the equation. You still need the cold, hard evidence to sway them. Think about what solid synergies are waiting to be highlighted. Tyler nodded, feeling a mix of empowerment and trepidation. The truth of Emma's insight rang true, mediating between statistical verity and human experience was a delicate balance he could no longer ignore. It dawned on him that each growth story demanded not just the statistics of success but the intricate details, the struggles, the dreams, the transformative power of connection. He began mapping out a flow for his presentation, infusing each section with emotional resonance. The deeper he got, the more he realized the need to draw the board in not just academically but personally. What if they saw themselves in those stories? Yet doubt lurked at the edges of his focus. What if they met his narrative with resistance? What if the board, steeped in tradition and conservatism, placed their stock solely in the realm of logic? Pushing those fears aside, he steeled himself. After all, he had something crucial to offer, genuine purpose driven by real data. The night drew on, and Tyler experienced an unsettling realization about himself. He wasn't merely a junior strategist anymore, he was becoming an architect of vision. But how far could he bend his ideas without breaking? Would he sacrifice comfort for authenticity if it meant leaning into the more vulnerable aspects of his own nature? In the stillness of the evening, he wrote down 2 words at the top of a fresh page: be brave. It felt like a mantra, a guiding principle he could cling to when fear threatened to creep back into his resolve. As the day of the board meeting loomed closer, Tyler oscillated between anxious anticipation and fervent hope. The stakes were higher now, not just for the project but for how he would be perceived, the kind of leader he was becoming. Still, a gnawing anxiety tugged at him, the uncertainty of how to convey the emotional weight of his narrative without seeming overly sentimental. What if his passion didn't translate? What if he was doomed to muddle through half-heartedly, never fully committing to the depths of what he wanted to express? Then it hit him, perhaps his own fear of judgment reflected their hesitation to embrace change. He needed to expose that truth in himself and the boardroom. Tyler felt a shift within, a newfound commitment to be his authentic self, willing to wrestle with the complications of leadership that required not just intellect but vulnerability. The path ahead was murky but charged with potential. As he meticulously rehearsed his points, another thought unfurled. In the process of redefining the board's perception of their project, could he manage to redefine his own? What would that identity look like when stripped of the uncertainties and focused on raw truth? With the dawn of the meeting approaching, he realized the pivotal moment was drawing near, not just for the project but for him, too. The true test lay less in what the board would say and more in how bravely he would make his case. As that realization settled, Tyler breathed in. He stood on the precipice of transformation, ready to leap. The most critical question now loomed: would he risk it all, fully embracing the chance to redefine success? Tyler awoke with a jolt, the moment of truth bearing down on him. The sun filtered through his apartment window, illuminating his notes scattered across the table like pieces of a puzzle he was desperate to solve. He clenched his fists, grounding himself in the reality of what lay ahead. Today wasn't just another presentation, it was his declaration of self, a chance to strip away the layers of fear and assumption that had codified his past. He stared at the words "be brave" prominently inked on his notepad, their significance echoing in the depths of his mind. The mantra felt heavier now, pulling him into a contemplative space where he could no longer ignore his insecurities. Had he really prepared enough? Would he muster the courage to intertwine passion with logic? Each thought provoked a fresh wave of anxiety, but deep down, another feeling stirred, an ember of determination igniting within. Tyler's morning routine was a blur of energy drinks and hurried movements, consumed by the looming presentation that could alter his career. Stepping into the office, he confronted a wall of conversations, ambition, and hurried footsteps. Every voice seemed to amplify his own doubts. He navigated through the sea of colleagues, their chatter a staccato rhythm fueling his rising tension. As he entered the meeting room, he felt the weight of all eyes on him. He noticed the board members seated around the polished table, expressions inscrutable, yet each face presented an invitation to connect. Taking his place at the front, Tyler's heart raced, not just out of anticipation, but at the thought of vulnerability that loomed ahead. Then, he began with the carefully crafted introduction. "Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to take you beyond the numbers and into the lives these figures represent. Change doesn't happen in a vacuum, it happens in the stories of real people." His voice trembled slightly, but he pressed forward, embracing that vulnerability he had once feared. He shared Marta's story, framing her struggle and ultimate success within the context of community funding. Each sentence painted a vivid picture in the minds of his listeners, drawing them close to the heart of what he truly wanted to convey. As he spoke, Tyler observed their reactions, noting subtle shifts, lowered pens, nodding heads, even the brief flicker of understanding in their eyes. In that moment, he understood. He was no longer just presenting data, he was kindling connection. Despite the blossoming serenity of verbalizing truth, the specter of doubt crept back as he transitioned into the data-driven segment. The room felt thicker, the air charged with an unspoken expectation. He interspersed cold statistics with emotional beats, weaving a tapestry of reliability through warmth. But these are more than just numbers, he declared with emphasis. Each percentage point represents opportunity, rebirth, and futures restored. We can't forget the people behind the success. The board remained silent, their faces inscrutable masks. Tyler met their gazes, searching for a thread of engagement. He could feel the energy shift. He was at a juncture where he must not only hold their attention but battle their skepticism. In that moment, challenges loomed before him. Would he stay true to his evolving self or retreat to safer narratives? Recalling Emma's words about the intertwining of emotion and evidence, he dared to challenge the status quo outright. I urge you to trust in this vision. Let us own this journey together, trembling ambitions and all. Silence draped the room. The sound of a throat clearing broke at a member shifting in his seat. Tyler's heart raced. The time had come to face the board's reaction, the foot soldiers of tradition and skepticism. Would they embrace his vision or flick it away like an errant fly? His mind raced with solutions, yet the true revelation loomed within him. This was not merely about convincing them of the project's worth but about affirming his commitment to authenticity. He was redefining success not only in corporate terms but also in personal integrity. The question still remained, would he emerge unscathed or consume himself in the pursuit of transformation? As the board member finally spoke, Tyler held his breath. Would their response echo his fears or validate his courage? In that charged moment, his entire future hung precariously on the precipice of dialogue. The board member leaned forward, fingers steepled beneath his chin, and broke the silence that had engulfed the meeting room. Tyler, your passion is palpable. But let us talk about the foundation of these claims. Can the data stand up to scrutiny? The tension in Tyler's chest tightened again. The question was simple, yet it reflected the magnitude of skepticism. He had inevitably stepped into the realm of scrutiny, where numbers were king, and emotions were often brushed aside. Taking a breath, he focused on the strength he had unearthed in himself, the voice of determination rising above his fear. Absolutely. The metrics clearly outlined the impact we're able to make, he replied, allowing his confidence to lace his words. As he navigated through spreadsheets and charts, he felt the tension shift. The data, when examined closely, began to echo Marta's story, forming a bridge between emotion and logic. But a flicker of doubt still haunted him. Would they truly listen, or would they only seek to deconstruct his vision? The board members exchanged glances. Some took notes, while others nodded ever so slightly, their expressions now a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Encouraged by this, Tyler pressed on, visualizing each number as a stepping stone toward their shared goals. The numbers reflect real change. Every dollar invested has returned not just in profit but in community stability. We've managed to break cycles of poverty in ways that are measurable, he articulated, backed by the research he painstakingly compiled. Yet, as his narrative unfolded, he increasingly sensed an underlying tension among some board members, a resistance that felt almost personal, as if they stood poised to strike against the unfamiliar path he was attempting to navigate. Tyler internally questioned whether his approach was too radical, but he swiftly reminded himself of his purpose. This was not merely a proposal, it was a clarion call for change. In the midst of this high-stakes dialogue, a familiar figure entered his peripheral vision: Emma, standing at the door. Her eyes radiated encouragement, silently urging him to soldier on. At that moment, realization struck him like a lightning bolt. He was not just defending his work, he was defending his newfound identity. This was less about the names and numbers on the proposal and more about the values he now espoused within himself. As the board member who had initiated the questioning leaned back, his expression unreadable, Tyler seized the momentum. If we want to define success differently, we must also be prepared for different pathways, he asserted. I understand change can be daunting, but consider this: the future isn't built solely on tradition. It's shaped by courage, by the voice that dares to ask for more. Pulsating silence filled the room again, all eyes trained on him. For an instant, Tyler wondered if he had gone too far, strayed too close to the edge of their comfort zone. Each tick of the clock echoed loudly in his ears, amplifying his heartbeat in the stillness. Just then, a board member, who had remained silent throughout, interjected. "And if we follow this vision, Tyler, what risks are we accepting? What if it doesn't pay off?" His question hung thickly, a palpable challenge. Tyler felt the weight of the room, a gravity pulling him toward self-doubt. But he was done retreating. "The greatest risk," he replied firmly, "is choosing to maintain the status quo at the cost of opportunity. If we shy away from innovation, we ultimately decay. Let us not remain victims of our fear." As murmurs rippled through the members, Tyler was unsure whether he had ignited a spark of intrigue or merely stoked a fire of resistance. However, one thing was clear: change required commitment, and this moment, this confrontation, was pivotal. He could feel the tension winding tighter, building to an explosion of possibility or rejection. Before he could gather his thoughts, another voice rang out, an ally or an antagonist. The confrontation tightened into focus. Would this support his journey or become another obstacle to hurdle over? Once again, his future teetered on the brink of uncertainty. Tyler stood there, feeling the temperature in the boardroom fluctuate with the energy of exchanged opinions. He felt prickling nerves and fire in his belly, the culmination of all his efforts crystallizing in front of him. This meeting was not merely a step toward a new corporate initiative, it was the defining moment for him personally. "Tyler," chimed in a board member, her voice steady, suggesting that she was about to challenge rather than support. "Making these changes isn't just about making a statement, it's about execution. How can we ensure that your passion translates into operational effectiveness?" This question cut through the chatter and asserted itself against the backdrop of silence that wanted to envelop him. Every eye was upon him, the weight of expectation hanging in the air, and yet through it came clarity. He leaned into this challenge, allowing his newfound confidence to bolster him. Operational effectiveness lies in our approach and the systems we put into place. This isn't just an ideal, we can create measurable goals aligned with community objectives that complement both our economic goals and our social mission. As he spoke, he noticed subtle shifts. Some board members leaned in, intrigued, others still clung to skepticism with rigid poise. But for the first time, he felt in control, his conviction loud against insidious doubt. "We can engage consultants, conduct pilot programs, and track success through community feedback combined with financial reports. Transparency will bridge my vision and our investors' pragmatic expectations." The murmurs heightened, woven with uncertainty and curiosity. His heart raced with anticipation, he was developing concrete pathways to substantiate his intentions. With Emma's steadfast support in mind, he continued, "I am not asking us to abandon our values, I'm asking us to reimagine them. Together, we can demonstrate the convergence of profit and purpose." Another board member pounced on his validation, but Tyler was prepared. "What you're suggesting, Tyler, is a dramatically different risk profile. Are we ready to risk our standing among investors?" His heart sank briefly at the memory of their last conversation about the precarious nature of his aspirations, but then he recalled the fire in Emma's eyes. "What we risk by not moving forward is far greater." Tyler took a deep breath. "Imagine our competitors advancing with initiatives that resonate with their audiences on social platforms. We could become obsolete. By embracing this vision, we'll keep pace with change and shift paradigms. Our investors will see not just returns but a morally driven entity garnering loyalty in an evolving marketplace." The tide shifted as more board members interjected with varying perspectives. There was still resistance, but amid it all, Tyler discovered glimmers of hope, supportive nods and allyship cropping up unexpectedly. At last, silence enveloped the room once again, pregnant with the unspoken weight of decision. Seizing the moment, he directed his gaze toward the heart of the board. "I urge you all to consider this. We stand at the front lines of an opportunity to redefine success not only for our company but for the communities we can elevate. Empower raw potential, engage in a new narrative, and watch what happens." He could feel the air crackling, it pulsated with unfulfilled promises of change. His intensity had transformed into a palpable force. As the final words fell from his lips, he felt illuminated not just as an advocate for change but as a man emboldened by possibility. After what felt like an eternity, the leader of the board, a traditionally stoic figure who remained quiet, finally spoke up. "Tyler, there's merit in your points. The idea of infusing purpose into our business model resonates. But we need further assurances on the revenue model." "Absolutely," Tyler replied, steeling himself, now invigorated. "I'll present you with precise projections, combining social impact metrics with revenue forecasts. We can build a timeline of accountability with roadmap markers for both community engagement and financial returns." The room buzzed, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Another member, breaking the silence, spoke up with a blend of curiosity and respect. "If we can ensure these initiatives are infused with tangible support and results, we might be willing to take this leap." A cautious excitement surged through Tyler. He realized their journey was far from over, but here was the acknowledgement they had needed to elevate his vision. As the conversation continued, building on the foundation he had laid, hope unfolded before him. When the meeting finally wrapped, he felt lighter, as if the weight of his years of ambition stripped of ego and inked in vulnerability had been transformed into substance. Taking a moment to collect his thoughts, he glanced around at his colleagues, many visually shaking off layers of skepticism. Then, he caught sight of Emma standing just outside the room, radiant, her pride spilling from her expression. Later that evening, he couldn't suppress the smile as he and Emma strolled through the city streets. "You did it," she said, her voice rich with pride. "You proved that passion and rigor can coexist." "I couldn't have done it without your encouragement," he fired back, sincerely. "You opened my eyes to what true success could look like." With each step, they solidified not just a partnership that spanned work and vision, but something more profound. Tyler felt a newfound confidence blooming within him, one centered on purpose rather than solely ambition. By the time they reached the cafe, he took Emma's hand, warmth threading through both of them. "Together, we can redefine what our company represents. Beyond technology, we can focus on humanity, impact and purpose intertwined." They shared a moment, aware of the path stretching ahead, a journey that wasn't just about individual gains or achievements, but a celebration of the connection they had forged. In that instant, Tyler understood that true fulfillment lay not in defeating the fear of judgment, but in sharing the vulnerability of growth. And with that realization, he felt an intense tranquility wash over him. Standing at the threshold of innovation, he embraced the fullness of his identity forged from understanding, empathy, and relentless hope. As they strolled back into the night, hand in hand, Tyler recognized the change he had desired for so long. He was no longer simply a CEO chasing profit, he was a leader evolving toward authenticity, ready to embark on an inspiring venture that would touch real lives. So, remember, the moment when commitment transforms ambition into action is where the true story begins. Now, if you resonate with this journey of personal evolution and leadership, you need to subscribe now to the channel. You won't want to miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can inspire your own transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach others who crave growth stories. Comment your reactions and theories about Tyler's incredible journey in the comments section. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.